Meet Jacob. Jacob lives in Wandsworth, in a 4-bedroom Victorian terrace that, according to the most recent valuation from his estate agent, is worth £1,450,000. On paper, Jacob is a millionaire. On paper, he is part of the wealthy elite. On paper, he is one at the British dream. But Jacob has just opened a letter. The boiler, the same boiler that has rumbled through 3 prime ministers, has finally given up. The quote to replace it is £4,600. And Jacob, the millionaire, does not have £4,600. He has, in his current account, £842. His credit card is sitting at a balance of £6,100. His wife asked him last week, gently, if they could afford a week in Spain in August. He said he would look into it. He has not looked into it, because there is nothing to look into. This is the story of the British paper millionaire of 2025. The man who is, statistically, in the wealthiest 1% of the planet, but who cannot replace his own boiler. The woman whose home value has tripled in 20 years, but who delays a dental appointment because she is waiting for payday. The couple who throw a dinner party in a £1.5 million house and serve supermarket own brand wine because the second mortgage payment came out yesterday. Today, we are going to dismantle the most expensive lie in modern British life. The lie that says a high net worth means a wealthy life. Because the data, the numbers, the spreadsheets, they all tell a different story. And by the end of this video, you will understand why being a British millionaire in 2025 might be one of the most financially stressful positions in the entire country. Let's start with the headline number. According to recent estimates, around 4.5% of British residents qualify as millionaires when you measure net wealth across all asset classes. That figure represents roughly 3 million adults, 3 million British millionaires. It sounds enormous. It sounds like a wealthy nation. But now, watch what happens when we subtract. According to the Office for National Statistics, in their most recent Wealth and Assets survey, net property wealth makes up 40% of total household wealth in Great Britain. Private pension wealth makes up another 35%. That is, 75% of British wealth, locked up in 2 assets you cannot spend on a Tuesday morning. Net financial wealth, the actual money, the accessible cash, the stocks and savings accounts for just 14%. Physical wealth, the cars and the watches and the furniture, makes up the remaining 10. Think about what that means. For 3 out of every £4 the average British household owns, it is sitting either inside the walls of their house or behind the locked door of a pension scheme they cannot touch until they are 57. Now subtract again. Strip out the millionaires whose entire wealth sits in their primary residence. Strip out the ones whose 7-figure net worth is actually £600,000 of property equity plus £400,000 of locked pension. Strip out the ones whose liquid, accessible, spendable wealth, the kind you can actually use to fix a boiler or book a holiday or weather a job loss, is under £50,000. Suddenly, that 3 million number starts to dissolve. Henley and Partners, who track liquid millionaires specifically, paint a far darker picture. By their measure, the United Kingdom is one of only 3 top 15 wealth nations to have actually lost millionaires over the past decade. Since 2014, the resident millionaire population has shrunk by 9%, while the global average for top-tier nations grew by 40%, and in 2025 alone, a record 16,500 millionaires are projected to leave Britain, taking with them an estimated $91.8 billion in liquid wealth. The real British millionaire, the one with cash, freedom, and choices, is becoming an endangered species. What is left behind is something else entirely, something that looks like wealth, photographs like wealth, postcodes like wealth, but cannot pay the heating bill. The villain of this story has a name, and the name is illiquidity. Illiquidity is the difference between owning something and being able to use something. It is the gap between the spreadsheet and the supermarket. A house is a wonderful thing. It keeps you warm, it keeps you dry, it keeps your family safe. But it does not, under any circumstances, buy groceries. You cannot snap a corner off the kitchen and trade it for a tank of petrol. You cannot remortgage at midnight when the boiler has flooded the basement. This is why the London paradox is so cruel. London households have the highest property wealth ratio of any region in the country, 51% of total household wealth, compared to just 30% in the northeast. Londoners look the wealthiest on paper because their walls are the most expensive walls in Britain. But London also has the lowest property ownership rate of any region in the country. Translation: a smaller group of people are sitting on an enormous, illiquid pile while everyone around them rents. And here is the psychological cost that no estate agent will ever put on the brochure. There is a specific kind of stress, identified by financial therapists in the past 5 years, called wealth poor syndrome. It describes the constant, low-grade panic of someone whose net worth is rising on Zoopla while their bank balance is falling at Tesco. They cannot complain to their friends because their friends see the postcode and assume they are fine. They cannot complain to their accountant because the accountant sees the balance sheet and tells them they are fine. But every Sunday night, when the bills and the standing orders cycle through, they know they are not fine. You are not wealthy because the walls around you are valuable. You are wealthy when you can stop, when you can pause, when you can take a month off, when you can absorb a disaster. The British paper millionaire cannot do any of these things. The walls are worth £1.5 million. The freedom is worth 0. So, how do British millionaires actually fund their lives if all their wealth is locked in property? The answer is the most British financial product ever invented: the remortgage. When the boiler dies, when the kitchen needs replacing, when school fees go up by 20% overnight, the paper millionaire does not sell stocks because there are no stocks. They do not draw down savings because there are no savings. They go to the bank and they release equity from the only asset they have, the walls. This creates something economists have started to call the debt engine. The British millionaire is, functionally, a high-level debt manager. They are not a person with £1.5 million. They are a person with £1.5 million of property and £450,000 of mortgage, and £80,000 of equity release, and £25,000 of personal loans. And the net result is, on a good day, £1 million of paper wealth and a monthly outgoing bill that would terrify a 30-year-old on an average salary. When interest rates were sitting at 1%, this engine was beautiful. Cheap money, rising house prices, a constant rebalancing in favour of the homeowner. But rates have spent the past 2 years between 4.5% and 5.25%. A homeowner who remortgaged in 2020 at 1.8% and is now coming off their fixed deal is looking at a monthly payment that has, in some cases, doubled. The Resolution Foundation has estimated that since 2022, total UK household wealth has fallen, in real terms, by 19%. That is the sound of the debt engine seizing up. The millionaire is still a millionaire on the spreadsheet, but the cost of running the machine that produces that title has tripled. Now, let's talk about the cost of looking like a millionaire. In January 2025, the UK government did something no government had done before. They added 20% VAT to private school fees. According to data from the Institute for Fiscal Studies, the average annual private school fee was around £18,450 before the change. After VAT, families are paying, on average, an extra £3,300 per child for day schools and an extra £7,400 per child for boarding. Over a child's full education, the total uplift can exceed £76,000 per child. A recent survey of 2,000 high net worth parents revealed the strain. 17% had borrowed against their homes to cover the new fees. 14% had downsized. 20% had paused pension contributions. Almost a quarter had taken on extra work. These are millionaires, on paper. Then there is council tax. In London and the South East, where most of these paper millionaires live, Band H council tax now routinely exceeds £4,500 a year. In some boroughs, it is creeping toward £5,000. That is before you have heated the house, insured the house, repaired the house, or paid the ground rent on the house. And then there is the comparison trap. The neighbour with the new Range Rover, the schoolgate parents talking about Verbia, the dinner party host who casually mentions her Tuscany place. When you live in a £1.5 million postcode, the social pressure to spend like a millionaire is constant, intimate, and inescapable. The cruelest part is that almost nobody on that street is actually liquid. They are all running the same engine, They are all one redundancy notice away from a fire sale. The lifestyle is not a lifestyle. It is a costume. And the costume costs more every single year than the role pays. Now here is the cruelest twist in the entire story. The mechanism that punishes the people most likely to escape this trap. In the United Kingdom, when your taxable income climbs above £100,000, something strange happens. Your tax-free personal allowance, which currently stands at £12,570, begins to disappear. For every £2 you earn above 100,000, you lose £1 of that allowance. By the time you reach £125,140, your personal allowance is gone entirely. The mathematical result is what financial planners now call the 60% tax trap. On every pound you earn between 100,000 and 125,000 and 140, your effective marginal tax rate is 60%. Add the 2% national insurance, and the real rate is 62%. Read that again. 62 pence in every additional pound gone. According to figures released by HMRC, around 725,000 workers will fall into this band in the 2025 to 2026 tax year, up from approximately 300,000 in 2017. By 2028, the figure is projected to reach 2,290,000 taxpayers. The thresholds have been frozen since 2021, and the recent autumn budget has confirmed they will remain frozen until at least April 2031. This is what economists call fiscal drag. Wages climb with inflation, thresholds do not. And every year, hundreds of thousands more professionals fall into a punishment band that was originally designed only for the very rich. So picture Jacob again. He earns £110,000 at his job. He is, on paper, a millionaire because of his house. But of every additional pound he earns, 62 pence vanish before it even reaches his bank account. He cannot save it. He cannot invest it. He cannot use it to escape the trap. And his house, the source of his wealth, does nothing to help him because his wealth is mortared into the bricks. So what do the actually wealthy do? The ones who own the same houses as Jacob, but who do not lie awake at 3 in the morning. They build a bridge of liquid assets. The shift is from status wealth, the kind that photographs well and impresses neighbours, to liquid freedom, the kind that lets you say no to a bad job, say no to a stressful client, say no to a relationship, a city, a year of your life that is not working. In the British system, the bridge has 3 planks. The first plank is the ISA, the individual savings account. You can shelter up to £20,000 a year in an ISU, and every pound of growth, every pound of dividend, every pound of withdrawal is tax-free for life. A couple consistently maxing their ISUs for 15 years, with reasonable market returns, can build a liquid pot of £300,000 to £400,000, money they can access tomorrow morning, without penalty, without paperwork, without HMRC. The second plank is the workplace pension, especially if you fall into the 60% tax trap. Every pound you sacrifice into a pension below the 100,000 threshold escapes the trap entirely. If you earn 110,000 and you sacrifice 10,000 into pension, you have effectively saved 60% on that 10,000. The taxman just bought you £6,000 of retirement. The third plank is the simplest and the most ignored. A boring, unsexy, accessible cash buffer. 6 months of expenses, sitting in a high-interest savings account, doing absolutely nothing impressive. The British Paper Millionaire almost never has this. The actually wealthy almost always do. The bridge is not glamorous. It does not photograph well. It does not come up at dinner parties. But it is the difference between a man who can replace a boiler in an afternoon and a man who stares at a quote for £4,600 and feels his stomach drop. There is a question that economists have started to ask quietly when nobody is listening. What is wealth, really? Is it the number on the Zoopla page? Is it the figure your accountant writes on your annual statement? Is it the postcode, the school, the car on the drive? Or is it something quieter than that? Something less photogenic? Something measured not in millions but in mornings, in Tuesdays? Wealth is what you can access on a Tuesday morning. It is the boiler you can fix today, the flight you can book this evening, the job you can leave this Friday. It is not the spreadsheet. It is not the postcode. It is not the costume. In Britain, in 2025, we have built an entire society of paper millionaires. People who, by every traditional measure, have won the game, and who, by every modern measure of freedom, are losing it. The walls are worth £1.5 million. The freedom is worth nothing, and the difference between those two numbers is the most expensive lie in modern British life. If this video has changed how you think about wealth, even a little, do me a favour, subscribe, share it with someone who is running the same engine Jacob is, and ask yourself, gently, the only question that actually matters. Not what is your net worth on paper, but what can you access on a Tuesday morning?